The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Wednesday, March 14th, Thursday, March 15th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair right here live in the Great White North in the Cariboo region on top of the melting snow on the mountains of central British Columbia at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio, The Fringe, The Spreaker, spacedoutradio.com. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. You can also follow us all over social media. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You can watch us as well on Periscope.tv live every single night. We are also on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with us during the show as well. It is going to be a great night tonight as we are also on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows from iTunes, our website once again, spacedoutradio.com, where you can check out everything that we got going for us. You can read up on the Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. pod. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on my latest blog. Also, great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight on Spaced Out Radio, it's the third Thursday of the month, which means it's time for another visit from our alternative media guru, Mr. Jamie Sexton. Yes, he is from the Rebel Planet News. Jamie is an alternative journalist who brings you the stories behind the scenes when it comes to what the mainstream media is not covering. Tonight, we are going to get into what could be one of the most controversial topics we've ever discussed on the show. Now, with the sadness surrounding the school shootings in the South, we've seen an influx in attacks on freedom of speech. From YouTube to Facebook and Twitter, people are getting shadow banned or put in Facebook jail, or getting videos flagged on YouTube for what they are calling inappropriate content. I've had one myself. An interview with James Fetzer. Yes, he is very, very controversial, but this goes back to 2016, and we've been flagged on it now. But this does not just infringe on the First Amendment in the United States or freedom of speech in Canada. Yet if you don't agree with the vocal minority, like Antifa, you are shunned, called a racist, a Nazi. We saw that in Canada recently, where Gerald Butts, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's right-hand man, responded on Twitter that if they didn't agree with more inclusive terms that the Prime Minister was using, like people kind, well, if you're different, you're a Nazi. Is that what it's come down to? Are we allowed freedom of speech, but only if it doesn't offend anyone? Now, we are having a little bit of Skype issue with Jamie Sexton right now as we are trying to get him back online here. So I want to know your thoughts. And what we're going to do also tonight is we are going to open up the lines to you guys. We want to hear your thoughts. All right, we want to hear your thoughts. We want to know what you are doing, what you're saying, what you're thinking. Okay, this isn't about being racist. This isn't about being different. Okay, just because you don't want to use the term they or zer or they or them for a vocal minority, it doesn't make you racist. Where does it draw the line? That's what it comes down to. Where does it draw the line? We will take your phone calls tonight at 1-702-302-4556. That's 1-702-302-4556. Once again, we're just having some troubles right now trying to get a hold of Jamie Sexton. And Jamie, if you're listening, I am going to try you on your cell phone here, because obviously this is not working through Skype. It was working earlier. Jamie and I, literally about 30 minutes ago, tested out Skype, and it was not working. So we're going to try Jamie on his cell phone here, and we're going to get things going here. That's the way we do things. That's why we always have a backup plan. You know, that's why we do it. So what do you think? What is your opinion on things? What is your opinion on freedom of speech? Do you believe that your rights to say what you want, how you want, when you want to, are being infringed on? Do you believe that the vocal minority is having the majority of say when you are trying to have all sorts of things on your mind? Do you hate editing yourself? Jamie's just rebooting his computer. So that's where we're standing right now. He's going to be a couple minutes away here, guys and girls. But I want to know your thoughts tonight. I want to know, do you feel ripped off? Do you feel frightened? Bill Hauser saying it's a police state that's happening. Up here in Canada, we just had Bill C-16 pushed through a while ago. Hate crimes out of control. Not that there are hate crimes being committed, but language now falls under that. I mean, the way I look at it, we'll get into this with Jamie, okay, because he's rebooting his computer right now. One of the things that I think is happening is that there are, and I'm not just going to blame the left, I'm blaming everybody on this. We, for too long as a society, have really, really condemned anything that is out of the ordinary. Yet the laws for freedom of speech, they're not there to protect you and I who obey them. They're also there to protect the person who is a little bit controversial. Take Dr. James Fetzer. Do I agree with everything that he says? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay? I mean, here's a guy who believes that some of the school shootings were false flags. The Boston bombing was a false flag. Do I agree with it? No. I actually condemn him for saying that the latest one in Parkland, Florida, was false flag, because it wasn't. I know that for a fact because a friend's son went to that school. Luckily, he survived scot-free. No big issue. But we have become so uber-sensitive. We have become so uber-sensitive as a society. And, you know, people have become, like John says in the chat room, people have become so narcissistic these days. We cannot have a discussion anymore without getting violent or throwing names, calling people names. I'll give you an example. Revolution Radio a couple months ago, I had to go through the higher-ups and Nighthawk, the guy who runs it, because I asked a guy on the chat room, okay, if he could please stop posting music videos. I couldn't follow the chat room to see if there were any questions from people who were listening in there. So I asked him, I said, what's the purpose of doing that to take people away from the talk shows that are on? All of a sudden, I was accused of being a Jew, racist, homophobe, and then he took it to the full term, the full length, pedophile. All because I asked him to not post music videos during the chat. All right? Does that make sense? But that's the type of society we have become. Everything is offensive. Everybody has to be a jerk these days. Everybody has to try and outdo one another, outbid one another, go one step further. And it's dangerous. Jamie Sexton, we got you. All right, I'm going to get you to turn your back speaker down a little bit because I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. You had a little bit of technical difficulty there, but that's okay. Probably, you know, it better to happen at the beginning of the show than the end.
Yep. Well, I'm glad I'm here now.
Jamie,
how you doing, Dave?
I am very good. And once again, Jamie from Rebel Planet News, as he is our one night of the month where we get into current events, what is happening around the world on an alternative side of media, Jamie. And we have a bigger talk because the last time you and I were on the air, Parkland had just happened. And of course, that brings the giant debate on gun control, Second Amendment down in the United States. It floods up here as well, up here in Canada. But a couple weeks later, or just a couple weeks ago, you and I were having a conversation that it isn't so much about the Second Amendment as it's turning out to be a real First Amendment problem in the United States or against freedom of speech up here in Canada for our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Where do you stand on that today?
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily agree that the Second Amendment isn't being threatened as well. It certainly is. I think that the entire Constitution and the fabric of our Bill of Rights are being threatened right now. I think it's across the board. I think it's a full frontal assault. But I know particularly this evening we wanted to focus on the First Amendment, and that too is another front that's being threatened, and it's coming, a lot faster and a lot more multifaceted than I thought it would. But here it is. It's even up there with you guys. So
it totally is. It totally is. And in the end, we do all have to be careful with what is going on, because in the end, Jamie, it affects what we do on a daily basis. It doesn't matter if you're a mainstream media or you're alternative or paranormal, like what we do. It just doesn't matter what it is. It affects everybody in every line of career. Why do you think people are not taking it as seriously as maybe they should?
I think it's a mixed bag, but I think it has a lot to do with the old boiling frog metaphor, where you put a frog in a pot of water and turn up the heat. If you do it slowly, frog's not really going to notice until it's too late. And I think that's how a lot of this is sneaking up on us. And I don't think that it just affects people who are in the broadcasting business or in the alternative media or anything else. Certainly it does affect that, but it also affects everyone, every day, all day. It is it applies to even common speech in everyday life, and that's the end result. Really, it's not even just about media, but you start to see it, especially in alternative media. You see it. And it's interesting that they're actually using alternative media as a means to affect some of this change and some of this policy.
And we see it all over social media, and maybe that's where we should actually start, is on the social media side of this, because love them or hate them, and you and I have agreed to disagree on this one. I'm not a big fan of Alex Jones, but I am a fan that he should have the ability to say what he says. We see YouTube banning his videos. We see Dr. James Fetzer having his videos banned because there are people out there who find what he says in his investigations as being offensive. We're seeing everybody get offended on social media. Shadow banning on Twitter for having certain rights on there. We're seeing on Facebook people getting put in Facebook jail left, right, and center, accused of spamming. I'll give you an example of that one. On January 17th, I said happy birthday to my daughter on my post. I had 174 people, Jamie, wish my daughter a happy birthday. My daughter's the type of kid who likes to say thank you. She's polite that way. So she goes on my Facebook, starts saying thank you to everybody. She got blocked for spamming because she was saying thank you to the posts.
Right.
I mean, that's where we are right now, is that everything seems to be taking control on what we are allowed to say. And if we can't use a social media platform in order to how can I put it, say what we want when we want, we're in trouble. We're in trouble, especially with the way people rely on social media these days.
Right. Well, there's a lot of layers to what you just said there, so let me try to pick some of that apart. Yes, it does affect, again, everyday folks, like you just said, regarding the post with your daughter's birthday there. And, so people are being affected personally. It's filtering its way into workplace policies, policies in schools and classrooms, policies on university campuses, policies in government institutions. So it's filtering its way into policy as opposed to just an idea of what's politically correct or what you can say and what you can't say. It's actually becoming policy. In our country, it's becoming policy. In your country, they've actually gone a step farther and instituted some law around it, and so it's all very, very dangerous. You mentioned Alex Jones and people like that, but you could include yourself in there. You can include me in there. I think it basically comes down to one principle, and this is where I come from with it all. Because a lot of this social police, a lot of this PC police, language police, what it really comes down to is it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's disguised to look as something good, something well-intended, but it's really not. For example, if you use terms that I hate terms like hate speech. I think the term hate speech is a very, very dangerous term. To me, it's the same as hate crimes. The word terrorist, I hate that word. Microaggressions, all of these little nuances and phrases that we have in society now, they seem well intended. They seem like they're things that are made to protect people that may be being harassed or bullied or discriminated against or otherwise disparaged. The problem is that it's not really so. And what in effect we're really doing is creating a problem. It goes all back to the, Hegelian dialectic. We're creating a problem, or, someone's creating a problem and creating a solution. And of course, then the solution, of course, is limiting your free speech, telling you what you can and cannot say. Now, you used the Alex Jones example earlier, and you and I have gone round and round on that, but at the end of the day, I don't care if Dave Scott comes on air and talks about aliens, or if Alex Jones comes on air and talks about gay frogs, or if George Knapp comes on, or anybody comes on. I don't care who comes on air, writes a book, gives a speech, talks to their friend. It doesn't matter what you say or what you're talking about. The bottom line is, if it offends you, or if you don't like it, or if you don't subscribe to it, tune out, shut it off, do something else. The moment that you start attacking someone and saying they don't have the right to say what they are saying, it's just a matter of time before somebody's going to tell you that you don't have the right to say what you're saying. And really, that's the bottom line. That's the principle. Free speech is exactly that. And the idea of free speech, the idea of the First Amendment, is not to protect popular speech. It's not to protect speech that everybody agrees with. Popular speech doesn't need protecting. Everybody agrees. It's the unpopular speech that needs protecting. And that's what the First Amendment is about. That's what free speech is about. It's about protecting your right in a republic, at least in the United States, and I would argue that it's a human right, to be honest with you. You should have the right as a human being on this planet to go where you want, say what you want, do what you want, and protect yourself as long as you are not affecting someone else, hurting someone else. Once we get into the business of protecting feelings, that's where we've run into problems. People use the idea of protecting feelings. In other words, that's not politically correct, and I'm offended. My feelings are hurt. Well, grow up, because that's the world. But once we get into the business of starting to dictate that someone's feelings can't be hurt, we're in a very bad part of humanity, and that's going to be, it will be our undoing. Now, do I agree that that it's kind or polite or proper to offend people knowingly or hurt people's feelings? No, of course not. I think any decent-minded person would acknowledge that it's not appropriate to make a practice out of offending and hurting people. That's a reflection on your character. And as a society, any society, we should acknowledge people that do that. And we should address them. They should be addressed. They should be tended to. But when we make it a policy by law or workplace policy or any other policy, once you make a policy of affecting certain things in society, that becomes a slippery slope. I think a lot of times we need to manage humanity and a lot of the things that we get wrong in humanity outside of policy or law. Because that's the tipping point because once you set a policy or a law, then someone is going to have to affect or enforce that policy or law, which is going to be some governing body, whether it be management at a workplace or whether it be the government over the people. And at that point, basically what you're saying is you've given more power to some governing institution over your life. And what happens is the more power that you give over each little fabric of your life away to a governing body, the less free you actually are. So is humanity perfect? Do we make mistakes? Do we offend each other? Do we say hateful things to each other? Of course we do. We have since the dawn of mankind. It's in our nature to be fallible, and we do those things. But we are doing ourselves a huge disservice when we start affecting policy and instituting policy about some of the things that we should be managing on different levels of society, in the home, at your school, in your community, at your churches, whatever your gatherings may be, whatever social networks you have. Now, when it comes to things like Facebook and things like that, I'm a little bit torn. And I personally have been kicked off of Facebook or suspended over 30 times since I've had a Facebook, probably more, for saying something offensive or whatever, whether it be misconstrued or, whether they accurately assessed what I was trying to say. Nevertheless, Facebook is a business, and, they started out privately owned and now they're publicly owned. So, that's a little bit different in my opinion. I think that Facebook has a right to conduct their business and run their business as they see fit. So I don't think that Facebook necessarily would represent a structure that definitively should adhere to the principles of the First Amendment, because they are a business, which in my opinion gives them the right to conduct their business as they see fit. That's a choice they can make. I would prefer that they had more of an open forum. I would prefer that they had more of the rules of the First Amendment, and people could say what they wanted to say. But I understand why they don't. But our friend Jeray Reed has social media freedom. So Jeray and other people out there are trying to offer alternative social media platforms that don't stifle your First Amendment and your rights. That's their choice to do. I wish Facebook would be more open in that way. So I'm torn on the social media part. But when it comes to shows like yours, shows like mine, or Alex Jones, or anybody else, say what you want to say, do what you want to do. If people don't like it, tune out. I mean, look, we know CNN is probably the most dishonest, quote-unquote, news network in the universe. They're still allowed to be in business. Nobody's shutting them down.
Jamie,
You know what I
we're,
mean?
we're
And
going
I
to
don't-
we're going to go to a phone call here. So if anybody wants to call in, it's 1-702-302-4556. Let's get your opinion on the First Amendment or the freedom of speech up here in Canada. Joe Roop from the Fringe FM
Hey guys.
and Spaced Out Saturdays.
Hey Jamie.
How's your hair, Joe?
Oh, it's pretty messy right now.
Mine
actually.
too. Mine too.
Okay.
Jamie, how's your hair?
It's wet. Just got out of the shower.
Nice. Okay, Joe, you got a question for Jamie?
Yeah. I just want to say I'm a big fan of Jamie and Rebel Planet News and everything, but I wanted to say that I'm kind of conflicted about this YouTube thing because I look at it the same way. I'm more of a, I guess, capitalist, I guess you would say. So there's a conflict here, in my opinion. YouTube is under no obligation to make sure that we keep our rights. They're a business as well. And so we've let them take over everything. You know, we've used them to the point where they have capitalized to a point to where Google has taken over a lot of things, but that's a capitalist society. In America, they can do that. Right. So, but they're under no obligation to make sure that we keep our free speech. And so now we're in a dilemma where
100%.
you know, the internet has to decide again, where are we going to go? And I have all the faith in the people on the internet that we'll find another platform if they keep doing it to us. I mean, we always do.
Yeah, because I agree with you. I think that certain platforms, you know, Facebook, YouTube, Google, they've got a monopoly on this game, and you know, more power to them, because I applaud their ability to do so well in the marketplace. That's great. But the best thing for business is competition. Everybody knows that. So I think that if people are going to get wise in short order, and I think the answer to this is to offer some competitors to them that are either more open or go the other way, because let's just face it, you know, there's a huge liberal PC slant to a lot of these platforms, and that's fine. But if they're going to start policing and shutting down alternative or conservative voices, that's dangerous. That's not good. And the only answer, the obvious answer, is competition. And it's a free marketplace, so I'm sure that it will spring up. Like we mentioned, social media freedom is up, and I'm sure that some others will spring up. We need a major competitor to YouTube. I agree with you on that.
I wanted to ask you too, and then I'll get off the phone line here, about Jamie, about your opinion on these new blockchain social media things. I find that a little bit scary. Well, it's blockchain, kind of like, I don't know if you've seen that show Black Mirror, but basically there's platforms out now that are being created where you can upload your content, and then you can get a Steam account or a Bitcoin account or whatever. And,
right.
And you
I don't know.
I don't account.
Right. I don't know that they're going to take off doing it that way. I think it's the wrong way to skin the cat on that. I mean, it's a neat tool. It's a good way to keep some free speech alive and some alternative views. But the community, when things, those communities have a tendency not to grow when they're structured that way. So,
well,
you know,
my concern is like Black Mirror, where you get, you know, people are like, the more people upvote you, the more money you get now. So now we're living in a society where we're doing everything to make sure that we get likes, right? And I actually saw an episode of that on Black Mirror, and that's pretty scary. And this is the new fad. There's big, humongous blockchain networks about to launch in just a matter of weeks, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's a gimmick and a fad, and I don't think they'll catch on. I'm not threatened by them. I don't participate. You know, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I just feel like that's not, I don't think that's the answer to our situation, and I agree with you. I think it's a bad thing ultimately, so.
All right, thanks for taking my call, Dave.
Anytime, yes, Joe Roop. Joe Roop. Joe has nice hair, Jamie. He has really nice hair.
Now, is Joe the singer we talked to before?
No, Joe runs the Fringe FM, Lighting the Void, and he's my host on Saturdays. Really, really talented and smart dude. Really talented, smart dude. Yeah, cool, I think he wants to bring you on his show one day during the week.
Gladly. Let's do it.
There is so much the way they try and steer this freedom of speech. As we just heard Joe, it's now coming down to likes on other platforms, and they pay you for those likes. Really, in the end, that's just as dangerous, is it not?
I agree. I was explaining to Joe, I think that those kind of ideas like that, what they do is they marginalize alternative voices. So while it appears like it's a good idea, what you're actually doing is you're actually putting yourself on the fringe. I think to meet things head on, it's just like any other opposition that you meet in life. You kind of have to meet a match kind. In other words, if our biggest threat is Facebook, or in other words, biggest threat to a free speech platform in the social arena is in the social media arena is Facebook and YouTube, then we've got to meet them head on and create some direct competitors to them. I think that's really, I know there's some talk about that out there. I don't want to give any names away just yet, but there are some things in the work. There's a major effort right now to build a platform that's just as good as YouTube, if not better. But of course, those things are always a risk. But if you remember, there was a thing called MySpace at one point, and then just Facebook came along and just shut them down. So it is possible in the digital world to do that. So.
All right, let's go to another phone call, area code 425. I think we're heading to Washington State. Who are we talking with tonight?
It's Robin.
Robin, how you doing tonight? Robin?
I'm doing great. I know we're talking about the First Amendment, but can you go to the Second Amendment real quick?
Sure.
I know that we had a gun law passed because of the Florida shooting, and I've been talking to my dad about this, and so the security guards could have guns in their schools because of what happened, and so
right.
what I was talking about this is that so if another shooting happens like in Florida, so then if they are able to protect the students, and I don't know, maybe end up hurting the kid or end up killing him, and then the parents of that kid are going to probably blame the school board because the security guard killed their kid, so it's going to be even worse then.
Right. Yeah. I there's all kinds of scenarios and ideas out there being floated about how to make schools and stuff more secure. And I agree. There's always holes in any plan. Nothing's really perfect, but I think we do need to do something to make our schools more secure. And, we can save the gun debate for another day. We've had that many times on this show, but, and we can do that again sometime. But I agree with you. We need to go about this wisely. But one of the things that I think doesn't need to be lost in all of this tragedy around these shootings is that schools and certain institutions do need to be made safer as far as violence goes. And whatever that takes, somebody's got to figure it out the right way to minimize any potential damage, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're going to get serious about protecting children, then we're going to have to get serious about protecting children. And going after guns is, to me, probably the least effective way to do that. But that's for somebody else to decide. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to talk about affecting someone's Second Amendment to protect them, you better be doing some other practical things to protect them too. I don't know what all those answers are, Robin, but yeah, I agree with you. We need to do it diligently and figure it out.
No, and I do agree that that our freedom of speech is being taken away.
Absolutely.
And it's like some politicians, for me, I think, are acting like the First Amendment on the Bill of Rights, of the first article, are acting like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I've heard the comment many times that it's just a piece of paper, or that our Constitution is just a piece of paper. No, the piece of paper is just something that the ideas were written down on. They're ideas and principles. They're not a piece of paper. And, they were long in the making. It took a lot of history and a lot of death and a lot of suffering and a lot of battles and a lot of sacrifice for those principles and ideas to be born and come to life. And so they're not just a piece of paper. They're ideas and principles that were documented and recorded on that paper. But they are definitely not just a piece of paper. And not only that, but every politician that is sworn into office, the president, senators, congressmen, sheriffs, the military, all of these people, when they take their job, they also take an oath to the Constitution. So a lot of these people that are in these positions of power are actually breaking their oath, which by law and by definition actually makes them treasonous. They could be tried, and if found guilty, could be put to death. That's the penalty for treason. So they're actually treasonous because a lot of them are breaking the law. They're challenging the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and you're not supposed to do that. So this is very serious business. We're not just talking about words on a piece of paper. We're talking about principles and founding principles of our nation that are now in jeopardy and being threatened. It's serious business.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Robin. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, bye.
Take care. Appreciate you calling in on, Robin. I want to stay away from the Second Amendment tonight because we're not here that will just explode this entire conversation, and there's going to be a lot of pissed off people. This is about the rights to free speech, where people are being told what they can and cannot say. So let's get to a question from Gail here. And she is asking, Jamie, do you know of any specific examples of what got censored on YouTube?
Do I know of any examples of things that got censored on YouTube?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Countless examples of things that get censored on YouTube. Just about every major news organization has had their things done. Countless examples in the alternative media. I've actually had videos removed. I've had interviews removed. Dave, didn't you say something? You got flagged something?
I got flagged for an interview in 2016 that I did with Dr. James Fetzer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we were talking about the Boston bombing and his opinion of the Sandy Hook shooting that time.
Right. Yeah, and I watched a lot of those things with James, and a lot of that's really good. And in addition to banning them or just altogether deleting them, sometimes they've deleted years of people's content and information. But in addition to just all and out banning or deleting someone's content, as you mentioned, they flag things now with great frequency. They're doing a lot of flagging, and they're also burying people's content. In other words, if you were to search for something, normally, like for example, let's take 9/11. If someone wanted to look up alternative theories to 9/11, September 11th, 2001, you used to be able to find all kinds of material. that now to find that same material is buried. You have to go 4 or 5 pages at least back before you'll find that. So what I'm noticing, the trend, what's being affected more than anything are alternative views, conservative views, and traditional values. Those are the main things that are being affected. So there's definitely a political slant to this. There's definitely a bias attached to it, and I would say there's an agenda attached to it, which is, to me, from my perspective, it's all about the globalist agenda, is what it is, and they're trying to rewrite history and spoon feed the information. And again, but like I believe it was Robert said earlier that. It was Robert or Robin, the YouTube example. They're a free enterprise. They can make those decisions. I don't agree with their decisions, and to me, it's becoming obvious what they're doing. But again, it's their platform. If they want to regulate it that way, I guess they have the right. I guess the only answer, as I suggested before, is just going to have to be some healthy competition.
1-702-302-4556 if you want to talk First Amendment, freedom of speech tonight with Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet. Highly suggest you call in 1-702-302-4556. I want to get to Tim's comment here because I think he has a great point. When we talk about free speech, including protecting what is unpopular, where do you stand then, Jamie, on, say, a group like the Westboro Church who protests soldiers' funerals, people who die from AIDS, their funerals, so on and so forth? Yes, they have a right to do that, but at what point is too much too much?
Well, I don't agree with protesting soldiers' funerals at all. But I also agree with their right to do it if they're doing it legally. In other words, if they're doing it inside of a church or on the grounds where the funeral is, then I would consider that an invasion of someone else's space. You know what I mean? It might even be a matter of private property. But if they're outside across the street, I think it's poor taste for them to do that. I think it's ugly for them to do that. But as ugly as it may be, I think when it comes down to it, if I had a set of scales, on one side of the scales I have to say there's ugly things in life, and on the other side of the scales, I say there's rights that you have in life. I would be willing every time to put up with the ugly parts of humanity, as long as I have my rights. You know what I mean? We're never going to be able to clean up humanity, and anybody that fools themselves into thinking that more laws and more regulations and stifling speech and people's right to protest and those kinds of things will make things more pleasant and pretty in the world, they won't. Trust me. It's been tried before, and it never works. It fails. It ends usually in very bloody battle. It's not a good thing. I think that we have to teach each other how to be better people, but we don't need to inflict policy or law to do that. So, that's a great example that the guest asked, because that is pretty disgusting to protest someone's funeral. I mean, there's that's a sacred thing. So do I agree with someone doing that? No, I don't. But as long as they're doing it within the confines of the law, I support their right to do it, albeit in poor taste.
It also comes down to the fact, too, Jamie, where people have taken the time to to build walls to keep them away from the family. And we've seen it with veteran biker groups. We've seen it with college students where they've built walls around, the Westboro protesters. And I think that's completely fair. I absolutely think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
I can't stand what Westboro does. I think it's a real shame on anybody who has a religious view or, or takes advantage of the entire protest system. Because, with everything, there is a right and there is a wrong. But on the flip side, it is their constitutional right to do that. It's just like we see,
Exactly.
If you want to take it a step further, we got about 5 minutes here before we got to go to break, Jamie. I'm a big fan of Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson up here in Canada. And I was, in preparing for this show, I watched a video last night where a university in Chicago would not let Ben Shapiro in. However, they also at the same time held a leftist type conference where the people who were speaking out about a lot of this hate speech towards anybody who had a differing view, that was fully allowed. So we're seeing this being integrated in universities. We're seeing it being integrated in colleges, high school, elementary schools. That's where it's starting with a lot of these people. Right.
Yeah. So what you have there is a double-edged sword. Number one, the idea that the speech police are out and free speech is being affected and your rights are being affected is one thing. But also one of the byproducts of that is that all of a sudden now the narrative is biased. It's slanted. It's one-sided. Because if you say, well, you have an A opinion and a B opinion, but we're going to ban B opinion from being heard. So now only A opinion can be heard. Well, that's, how communist is that? That's just absolutely wrong. That sort of thinking has absolutely no place in a free society. But these young people, bless them, but they're misguided. They're young and they're all well-intended and they want to do good in the world, and they think that older people have screwed up the world and they have a better way and they're going to fix it all. Well, what they don't realize is that they're doing nothing new. Any idea that they've had or try or going to try has been tried again through history, and it always fails. Because freedom always wins, but unfortunately, sometimes throughout history, the pendulum swings the other way for a little while, and things get messy and ugly and bloody. And I would like to think that we could rise above that this time and stop that pendulum from going the other way. But it looks like there's a whole lot of people that are hell bent on us, on the pendulum going the other way, and us losing our freedoms and starting all over again. I hate to see that, because I think if people would just understand how the United States and the West was founded as far as the principles go, even though we make plenty of mistakes, our republic is absolutely by no measure perfect. But it is a shining example of a great start. And unless we nurture and preserve those founding principles, we're going to be in a huge mess. Not only the United States, not only the West, but the entire planet is probably going to be in very bad shape if things keep going the way they're going. And I know we're just talking about free speech today, but trust me, it's all part of the same thing. Once we start losing our rights, we're in big, big trouble.
Elizabeth in the chat room says, I think that PC fascism has been around for decades, and now it's finally showing itself really for what it is. And that's really what it is it not? Because I think there's a lot of people, even on the left, Jamie, who would not agree with what a lot of things that are going on, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's Antifa, whether it's college students going absolutely haywire and protesting free speech when somebody like Ben Shapiro or Milo Yiannopoulos comes on the property to speak about freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah, Elizabeth nailed it on the head. It has been going on for decades. As far as I'm concerned, the attack on free speech is just one tentacle of trying to undo the fabric of Western society and traditional values. That is, and that in itself is a tentacle of the global plan. So this thing is layered. But yes, she's correct. This one, if we want to focus on the free speech and the PC police and those types of things, yes, that tentacle, that part of it has been building for a long time, for decades. But again, it goes back to that frog in the boiling pot metaphor. And, it starts out, people think that it's a forward-thinking thing. They think it's a progressive, well-intended, good thing. They think that we're maturing as a nation and as a people. But what they don't realize is that we're actually jeopardizing our freedoms and ultimately our nation, our way of life.
Jamie, I'm going to get you to hold on as we are going to go to our first commercial break of the night. Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet is with us tonight. We're talking free speech, the First Amendment down in the United States. Up here, it's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. Do you think political correctness is going too far? Are you unhappy with what you can and cannot say these days? Are you one of the millions who are just shutting up in order to not cause a problem? We'll get into more of it in hour number 2 with the Rebel Planet with Jamie Sexton right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lori and Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Laurie and Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, At spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, M.K. Davis is going to join us. We're talking Bigfoot. We are talking the Patterson and Gimlin films starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cephalianomancy. Cephalianomancy is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sends a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Watch us live on Periscope.tv. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including watching some great videos from UFO seekers at Contact TV, rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, or reading up on the latest weird, strange, and paranormal news on the Encounter online as well. Tonight, we have Jamie Sexton with us from the Rebel Planet News. The Rebel Planet is a alternative news feature we do here once a month, the third Thursday of every month. And Jamie, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
We're talking freedom of speech and where it goes. In the first hour, we spent a lot of time talking about social media, what is happening on social media. Now, there are a lot of AI programs that are flagging a lot of these posts, whether it's spam, whether it's content that mentions anything weird, strange. How tight are these AI programs on social media that are causing a lot of these issues with people online?
Well, from what I understand, there are algorithms out there that, scan all the different parts of these social media platforms for keywords, phrases, video content, banners, all kinds of things that they can pick up on. So a lot of it is controlled by algorithms. And then a lot of it is actually hands-on. They actually have, from what I understand, like at Facebook and Twitter and at Google and YouTube, Facebook, all these different things, they have certain departments that are dedicated just to daily investigate some of these flagged algorithms and flagged accounts. So it's something it's something they keep an eye on, hands-on as well as automated. It's definitely a concerted effort.
Well, these algorithms, though, seem to flag the most inane things. I know with myself, I have stopped posting a lot or tagging people in my own chat room. Normally what would happen in our SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook is I would type in a bunch of people's names to come on in and chat. A lot of people liked those reminders. However, I would start getting put in Facebook jail for spamming. And I would type I would appeal it every time, and I would type into Facebook, explain to me how I am spamming my own room. But the problem is, these companies, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, they don't have human beings actually taking a phone call anymore, or even in an online chat where you can ask these questions as to why this continuously happens. Because once an account gets absolutely flagged, like mine has, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do without being considered a repeat offender, which makes them turn up the algorithms a little bit higher on you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and you never know, too. Like, it could be somebody that was in your room that, was busy and got a got a notification about, being tagged or whatever, and, you may assume that there's somebody that wants to be tagged, but they're not. But despite whatever the initial, attention was drawn to you, whether it be an algorithm or somebody reporting it, whatever, once you're flagged, then the algorithm kicks up to a different level. Now they actually target your account. That started happening to me some years ago, where they would actually target my account. And I never knew if it was a live human being or an algorithm. But it doesn't matter by what method they do it. Once you're flagged, you're on their radar.
It is ridiculous because, social media, yes, it's in their policy about spamming and everything like that, but for a lot of businesses that use this, not only my own, but for a lot of businesses who use this and who need to be able to maybe they don't have an advertising budget where they are using the benefits of social media, what they're doing is they're forcing these companies now to buy in to advertising, to buy into promotion. And that all of a sudden becomes more business-like rather than being an open platform. So it's almost like they're saying, okay, we've given you the freebies for a while, now buck up, otherwise we're going to block you.
Yeah, that could be it as well. It could be a marketing thing where, they see that you have a platform with viewers and, you'd probably be interested in paying for some advertisement or promotion. Sure, I wouldn't put it past them. It's not all about politics and censoring people. Sometimes it's money motivated. Sure.
So how does one get around that then? How does one get into a platform that says, I want to be able to post what I want when I want? Yes, we have, and I will clarify this, Social Media Freedom is a sponsor of this show. We highly direct everybody that we can to go over to Social Media Freedom. They're just working out a few kinks on their system right now that should be up and running here by the end of the month. So we are promoting people to go over and sign up for Social Media Freedom at socialmediafreedom.com. But that isn't the point. This isn't just about joining a sponsor of this show. It's a real problem that people are having on a daily basis when you talk about anything controversial. It's like all we're it's like Facebook. All they want us to do is get back to taking photos of our dinner and putting up memes of cats.
Yeah. Well, I was involved in a live chat discussion with Mark Zuckerberg, and point blank asked him, I said, does Facebook actively censor particular political positions? And he just completely refused to answer the question. But he got all red-faced and skipped on past it. And he did the same thing early on when Facebook was just getting popular. He had a well-documented interview that he did, and he was asked about censorship, and not only censorship, but also sharing people's information and things like that. And he literally started to sweat and had to take off his jacket and got very, very uncomfortable he gets very uncomfortable with those pointed questions. Even his own behavior reveals that they're definitely up to it. But I don't know, to answer your question, the way around it, I don't know that there's a way around it per se. Again, I begrudgingly support YouTube and Facebook's right to do what they want with their site. If they were government-owned institutions, I would have a huge problem with it, but they're not. So therefore, because I support capital enterprises and people being able to do what they want with their businesses, I don't want to be a hypocrite. If that's the way they want to run their business, I guess that's the way they're going to run their business. The only alternative and the answer in a free marketplace is competition. Other platforms that don't do that. So in time, I think that's what's going to happen to these companies. They're going to meet a competitor that doesn't anger half their base.
And that's where all these different platforms are all of a sudden going to start picking up steam, because people are going to get fed up. They really are going to get fed up. And let's face it, it's easy to do a copycat format because the format's already out there. You know what people like and what people expect. All you got to do is turn off the algorithms that say, hey, you can't say this. So if you go out there and you say, I support Donald Trump, just because the platform may not, you don't get flagged for that. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's. I mean, I like to. I would like to think that because we use social media platforms in so much of our daily lives now, and because it's so influential, for the principles of our country to thrive as they were meant to in this new technology age, I think that it's logical that anybody that's patriot-minded, anyone that adheres to the founding principles of our nation, should conduct their business accordingly. If you have that kind of business, in other words, if you're a social media platform, if I owned a social media platform, that would be my stance on it. It's because it's the way I conduct my life. I don't agree with everything I see in daily life, whether I'm at the grocery store, or at the car wash, or at a concert, or anything else. There's a lot of things in life that aren't my bag. They're not my flavor. Some things really get under my skin. But then I pause and I think, they're not really hurting me. They're just doing what they do. And who knows, maybe they don't like me either. Maybe they don't like what I'm wearing or what I say, or, this girl or these 3 girls I'm with, or whatever it is, whatever's bothering them, So you have to, that's true liberalism, is being accepting. The people that call themselves liberal nowadays aren't very liberal. To me, they're the very opposite of liberal. It's a very strange phenomenon what's going on out there with that type of thing. But I would hope that these social media platforms that are already out there and viable and doing well and so popular, I would hope that they would get smart and adhere to the founding principles of our nation and not censor opposing views and things like that. But I don't see that happening, unfortunately. I think the only thing that's going to remedy this are some really healthy competitions.
One of the things that I have noticed in regards to the extreme left is they are throwing around the word Nazi like anything, like it's candy these days. Okay?
Yeah.
The last I checked, being compared to a Nazi is not very good. Okay? Because they killed 6 million innocent Jewish people. Never mind the atrocities that they also did across Europe, in Russia, in their bid for global takeover. Now, Hitler wasn't a good guy. I think we can agree on that. You know, he was not a good guy. And when I see, like, up here, Justin Trudeau's right-hand man saying basically on Twitter that if you don't support what the Prime Minister says, you are a Nazi. I have a problem with that. And they are throwing around that word Nazi like candy, like I said. It's dangerous. And it's making a lot of good people who may not have a voice, but they have a vote, back away and say, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, I think the people that are saying that are either categorically liars and being dishonest, or they're ignorant and really don't know much about history, because most of this stuff, and let's just be frank about it, most of it is coming from the politically correct, quote unquote, left and liberals. Let's just call it what it is. And they're throwing the word racist and fascist and Nazi and all these hateful, ugly terms around. And really, to be perfectly honest with you, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to evaluate their behavior and see that they're actually the ones that are behaving that way. They're the ones that are trying to shut down people's rights and people's free speech and liberties and things like that. They're the ones that are trying to dictate all of that restrictive policy. So, I don't want to get ultra political about it, but let's just call it what it is. They run around to all these rallies screaming fascists and Nazis. It's just, like I said, they either don't know their history or they're just categorically liars. That's what it comes down to.
Well, where did that term all of a sudden become popular now? I mean, that's a sickening, rude term. I mean, I would almost equate that to the way African American people should be offended if somebody were to throw the N-word around in a derogatory way. I mean, just because somebody is white, male or female, doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you should be dropping another N-word on them called Nazi.
Yeah, that whole N-word thing bothers me too. I don't know what N-word people are talking about. Is it Nancy, Nantucket, Nigeria?
I know where you're playing that up a little bit. I do get that.
Of course I am. Yeah, and it is an ugly word. It's a derogatory term. However, I think I would use that word as an example of what I'm saying. It is an ugly word, but to set and we can all agree as human beings not to use that word and not offend people. We can agree to do that. But when you set it as policy or start giving it a name like hate speech and those types of things and start enforcing policy with it, then we're into a whole different territory. But the Nazi thing, I think that word's become trivialized. Fascist has become trivialized because these people, these young folks they're really detached from the history of it anyway. So they don't really even have much of an accurate frame of reference. But they definitely don't have a visceral attachment to it. They don't have an emotional attachment to it. They weren't around during those times. So they may have a little problem even relating to the true definitions of those things. I think those terms are being trivialized. But their own behavior, and not everybody, not every liberal. I've got some wonderful friends on the left who are very intelligent people and have, great valid opinions, and we have great debates all the time. But I'm just talking about the rabid, vicious left that basically what I consider the vehicle for the globalist. And they're the ones that I'm worried about. They're the ones I'm concerned about. And they throw those terms around Nazi and,
But Jamie,
fascist and all that.
We have the Prime Minister of Canada's right-hand man, Gerald Butts, saying if you don't agree with the political correctness of the Prime Minister, you're a Nazi. This is a man of power saying this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those kinds of statements like that are extremely dangerous. A lot of this stuff is very alarming. And, what bothers me is that a lot of people, they will hear these arguments that, like the discussion that you and I are having this evening, and they either disagree or maybe they agree, but they don't see the alarm in it. They don't see the gravity of it. And, but one of the reasons I got started Rebel Planet News and one of the reasons I got into alternative media and exploring these things was because I've been studying this stuff for over 25 years of my life. So none of this is new to me. None of this is coming by surprise. I anticipated all of these things, the attack on the Second Amendment, the attack on the First Amendment, all the political correctness, all the indoctrination of the children, all these things. I saw the writing on the wall for all of this stuff long ago, and I was worried about it. I was concerned about it. I had no way to know when or how exactly it would be implemented, yada, yada, yada. But I know that the end result of this, basically, is not a pretty picture. And the only way we're going to stop the big picture, the end result of it, is to not let them make inroads with the smaller portions of it. And as huge as it is, as big of a part of our life that our rights and our amendments are, and our Constitution, as big as those are, they're really but a piece of the puzzle. So we need to stop them in their tracks. We need to take this very seriously, because as I said earlier, even if you don't feel threatened by it, you need to consider something. If right now you feel like all of these things that are being done are positive things, if you feel like they're things that are making positive changes, we need to shut these people up and we need to shut these people down, blah, 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 blah. Just remember that once you set a precedent for being able to shut down one person's free speech, next week it could be you. Next week it could be your position. And that's exactly how it works. It doesn't just go one way. This is a principle argument. It's not necessarily even a political argument or picking one side or the other. It's a matter of preserving our rights and not having them infringed upon.
Why do you think people now, though, are so afraid to speak up in their peace of mind? Are they afraid of the backlash? Are they afraid of the fight because the voice of the extreme left is so loud and ruckus these days? Because I look on social media and I'll have a lot of people who will message me, Jamie, behind the scenes, as I'm sure you do as well, where they'll say, dude, I agree with you so much, but I just can't go on social media to say that. Or I wish I could say that, but I just can't. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I've experienced that a lot. I do in my life often. I can't tell you how many times I've been, Dave, to a backstage hanging out with, celebrities or, at some sort of event or some sort of a dinner or gala or banquet or something with extremely high-level people or high-profile people from all walks of life. I'm talking about politicians, law enforcement, security agencies, celebrities, everybody, and they'll always give me a little wink and a nudge and go, man, I like the stuff you say on your social media, man. I like what I heard on the show, or but yeah, same thing. They'll tell me, I'd love to comment on it, man, but I can't because I'll lose my job or I'll lose support, blah, blah. And I understand the position they're in. On the other hand, that's how the other side wins. You often lose a battle when you do nothing at all. And I think that's, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But there's been such this stigma attached at the politically correct, or the left somehow has this supposed moral high ground when they have nothing of the sort. And, but it's sort of been implied that that's the case. And so there's sort of a false stigma out there right now that needs to be challenged. And I think more people need to stand up and start, intelligently challenging some of these crazy things that are going on. But I agree with y'all. It is hard. It is hard sometimes to speak out, and you do get attacked. But, getting attacked is just part of life. There are no safe spaces in real life. There's no safe space in real life. Real life is a challenge. And if you believe in something, you got to stand up for it, because if you don't, you'll lose it. And that's what you're seeing right now.
1-702-302-4556 if you want to call in tonight and talk about free speech. What you think? Do you agree with Jamie? Do you not agree? We want to hear from you. Let's talk about it. 1-702-302-4556. This leads to Gail's question in the Periscope chat room. Jamie, what is your opinion then about free speech zones?
I don't really know what free speech zones are. Maybe she can explain that to us. I don't.
There is a little bit of delay, so I'll get Gail to explain that into detail a little bit more in regards to it.
Yeah.
But in regards to the way that people are speaking out, there are three people right now that are really stepping up to the cause to try and bring this to attention. One is a homosexual Brit in Milo Yiannopoulos. One is an American Jewish man in Ben Shapiro, and one is a Canadian university professor in Jordan B. Peterson. Now, when I have listened to all three, I'm not hearing a lot of racist stuff coming out of them, yet they are the gasoline that is being poured on the fires of the extreme left, where they have had, these are gentlemen who have to, when they go up on stage, like Milo has to wear a bulletproof vest. When Ben Shapiro goes up on stage, there's like 30 to 40 security guards around him. Same with Jordan B. Peterson. And all they're saying is, how can we have acceptance if everybody is acting the way they are? What's your opinion? And let's take Ben Shapiro, for instance. What's your opinion of Ben Shapiro?
I like Ben Shapiro, but I would disagree that those are the only three. Alex Jones is way in the game. Steven Crowder is way in the game.
Yes, I forgot Steve Crowder.
There's dozens of soldiers out there that are at the front lines of this, and they're all doing a wonderful job of challenging this, and they're waking a lot of people up, So my opinion of them is keep up the good fight. And, the funny thing is they're all individual human beings themselves, and they don't all necessarily even get along with each other, which is funny. And I have conversations with them. I know Milo and some of these other people. So I keep in touch, and I keep in touch with their material, and I follow their articles and their interviews and their debates. And, I think they're all really on top of it. I think they're doing what they need to do, but more of us need to be doing that too. And they're very open-minded people. You mentioned, Milo being a homosexual. He's not just gay. He's very flamboyant. He's, he wears really heavy makeup and jewelry, and he's very effeminate, and he makes no bones about that. And, I guess that might offend some people. It doesn't me. I don't care. But the irony is that he's such an enigma. He's such a contradiction, because he's a conservative, very outspoken conservative, and they won't let him. He's too right wing to speak on these campuses. So the irony is staggering. It's just staggering. I can't even follow their logic. I can't even follow the left's logic most of the time.
Well, there was
agree with it.
There was a
student. I can't follow it most of the time.
There was a student recently at a university in the United States where he challenged his professor at a Christian university about the science behind transgenderism. Basically saying, it's male or female. Science proves that. And because the teacher didn't agree, she threw him out of class. The university has agreed with the teacher because the student was not, how should we say, politically correct enough, and now he will not be able to graduate. And his goal in life was to be a university professor. This is what it's coming down to at the university or college level.
I think what should happen is, in his case, or one of these cases like it, and I hear them all the time, someone needs to sue, and it needs to be a very public lawsuit, because a university is a business. It's not a government institution. Nobody is guaranteed a college education. It is a business. And universities can and are sued all the time for all sorts of things. So I would suggest that someone who has paid money to be educated at one of these universities and done business with them, because that's what it is, I pay you, you educate me, and basically kicked him out, he needs to sue because they did not deliver on their contract. And they did. And not only did they not deliver on their contract, but they didn't deliver on the contract due to a political difference. And so there is grounds for suit, and I think it needs to be probably needs to be several lawsuits by several people. Once they start suing these universities, and they have the right to do so, the public should get behind them and support them and make these cases go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Whatever it takes to win the suit, because these universities, although they are businesses, are infringing on people's rights, and they are denying them an education, and more importantly, they violated their business contract with these students by kicking them out. And it's not only students, by the way. Some professors at universities don't agree with this stuff either, and a lot of them are being fired or, relocated and all sorts of things. And, I have some particular insight and connections with that I won't talk about on air. But, yeah, people very close to me deal with this stuff all the time. So it's an ugly thing. I'm looking on Periscope, and I see Gail's question about safe spaces. She said that what do they call? She said not safe spaces. She had asked earlier, zones. What do I think? Free speech zones. Yeah. Well, and I see that she specified there are areas on college campuses and other places where one is only allowed to speak out. Well, we do have a free speech zone. It's called the United States of America. So that's written in our Constitution. So that's the only zone that I'm aware of. The other ones are an abomination. That's ridiculous. I think you should say anything you want, anywhere you want, anytime you want. And that's what free speech is about. It's not. You have free speech in this area. It's not a recreation area. I don't need anybody's permission to say what I want to say.
And that's what is constitutional in both countries in North America, even in Mexico, right? Is the right to free speech. And yet that is now being challenged in a number of ways in court. And I agree, the students should be suing. If my son or daughter went to university and was caught up in or booted out because of saying something that is free speech, college of all places, Jamie, is where this is supposed to happen. That's how kids learn.
Yes.
Universities are the one place that a student or a child should be able to go and ask questions. And if they are being shut down in the educational system, that, you can't say that because it's politically incorrect,
Right.
Why not?
Well, that's lost on people these days, that universities are supposed to be think tanks and free thinking environments and debate environments, and universities are where young minds and brilliant minds clash and discover new things about the world. the moment that you start controlling and stifling what goes on there, you can't say this, you can't say that, burning books, you can't read this, you're not allowed to wear that. The moment you start doing that, then the university is not serving its purpose. But it's not just universities. Unfortunately, it's K through 12. From the time someone is able to start walking and talking and going to school, even through their university education, all of it, they've become less of an environment to educate and more of environments to indoctrinate. And that's really what we're seeing. They're not really worried about educating anybody. They're worried about indoctrinating them into this new globalist mindset.
Well, I remember when my daughter was in elementary school, and she went to a school where it was all female teachers. It was a public school, but it just happened to be that way. And the teachers there all voted.
All females.
They all voted that sports day would no longer be about competition. It would be about enjoyment and fun. And you look at a lot of students today, and we've talked about this a little bit on this show recently. When they get out in the real world, Jamie, they don't understand that, let's say they get into computers and they want to work for Google or Microsoft, okay, major corporations. They don't care about giving you a handout. They care about what are you going to do for them. It's about winning and losing. And the more, and I'll even throw in another example here, the more over the last 15 years that I've seen kids walk away from sports, whether it's football, baseball, hockey. I don't consider soccer a sport, but that's just me. But the more I've seen kids walk away from sports and turn to hanging out, video games, or turn away from music, or something along those lines, okay, the more I see them not understanding or wanting these handouts from the world, like you owe me something. You owe me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think if you evaluate all this stuff from the perspective that what I think there's a movement to do, and of course they're using all sorts of instruments to affect this. They're using academia, schools and universities. They're using public policy. They're using the media. Everything they can to affect society and indoctrinate and influence society towards a common goal. And once you understand that common goal, once you see it with your own eyes and understand what's going on, then it all starts to make a little more sense. What they're trying to do is dehumanize an individual. They're trying to dehumanize the individual by not allowing that individual to challenge ideas, to have his ideas challenged, to expand his mind, to discover right and wrong on his own, to skin his knees occasionally, to lose occasionally, to win occasionally. They're trying to dismantle the individual human spirit on the individual level. They're also trying to dismantle the family unit, the nuclear family unit, mom, dad, and the children, because we all know that once you bust up a family, it affects the children, and they're more pliable because they've got all sorts of issues, classically. Not everybody, but typically that's the way it goes. There's just that once you start to attack the fabric of society, what starts to happen is that individuals become weak and pliable. And so a lot of these things, if you evaluate them from that standpoint, and I truly believe that's what's going on, what you start to see is why some of these things are being done. Because a lot of times you'll look at things and say, well, why are they doing that? That doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Because it all feeds the same purpose. The end game is to make you very pliable, very weak, very agreeable, and not have a backbone, and not to think for yourself, not to do for yourself, not to win, not to compete, not to find the things in life that you are particularly skilled at, or you are particularly good at, and have to offer the world. They just want everybody to be neutered and softened and march in line. And that makes everybody, better slaves. So
let's get to Ron's question here, because I think that's an important question. He says, Jamie, hypothetical question for you. Women left work for World War II. Many latchkey kids have grown up overcompensating with millennials, leading to present-day naive bunch of wussy people. What will their spawns be like? Is this all, or is all hope for the future lost?
Well, I wouldn't just blame that particular element of history on that, but that he's correct. That definitely was a contributing factor, and a lot of subsequent things after that have fallen into place to contribute to that. There are a lot of contributing factors to the softening of our nation, and what the future holds, I don't know. Of course, I don't think anybody knows until it happens. But I know that there is an agenda on the table to globalize. And the only way to globalize is to take away, as I said, individualism. You have to take individualism away from the individual. You have to take it away from the family. You have to take it away from the neighborhood, the community, the towns, the states, and ultimately the countries. And then you have one world, basically, is the idea. Probably take a long time to get there unless it's accelerated by a global war. If we have another global war, it would accelerate it a lot. I think that's a very real possibility, but it's, you just don't know. As far as what the future actually holds, it's hard to say because we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know who's going to win. I still think that there's some fight left in the game to preserve individualism, sovereignty, states, countries, heritage, tradition, values, and people's individual belief systems, whatever they may be. One guy over here believes one thing, a guy over here believes another thing. We should both be protecting each other's rights to believe different things. And unless we get busy doing that really quickly, we're going to be in big trouble. We're going to be in big trouble because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and we're creating a lot of weak links right now. So we're going to have to figure this thing out and start challenging this global movement in an intelligent way.
Let me ask you this then, Jamie, because for a lot of people, for instance, in the last federal election here in Canada, only 71% of the population voted. Now, in the United States, I believe last federal election, or presidential election, I guess you call it, less than 71% actually got out and voted. That means there is a giant number of the public in both countries, 1/3 or more, that do not believe that a vote means anything anymore. Why should they waste their time? Because they are not getting what they need out of the politicians, or their voice isn't being heard anymore, so why bother? How much has voting and the lack of people voting or caring to vote today been a burden on this entire process?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that's a simple question to answer as it may seem, to be honest with you. I think that you always have a portion of the population that doesn't go out and vote. And some of those things that you mentioned might be contributing factors. In other words, they feel discouraged in the system or apathetic about it or whatever. But, we talked about the winning-losing spirit, right? Same goes with elections. Be thankful that you live in a part of the world where if your guy or gal didn't win this time, you can always vote next time. It doesn't always go your way. So that in itself should never discourage people from going out to the polls and exercising their right to be a part of the process. I just want elections to be fair and legitimate. I don't want them manipulated or rigged or affected in dishonest ways. But aside from that, I think everybody should get out and vote if you're of voting age and you're still alive and you're a legal resident of the country that you're actually voting in. Aside from those three elements, I can't see any reason why I wouldn't want everybody to vote.
Do you think the fact or the understanding of or the purpose of voting is lost on a lot of society?
No, I don't. I think everybody understands that. I mean, the idea of voting should be a simple one. You cast your vote for who you want to lead the country. But I think what is lost on people is doing their homework and doing their critical thinking. I think people spend a minimal amount of time in front of a television or on the computer getting what they consider to be informed about politics and who the right person for the job is without really exercising critical thinking and thinking for themselves and doing their actual homework. And they're just going out and listening to the talking heads on the television or on social media and listening to stuff like that. And I think people by and large get swept up in a mob mentality, and a lot of times they'll follow popular trends. And when it comes to important decisions in life, I don't think you should ever do something just because it's the popular thing to do. Not with the important stuff. Maybe with the trivial stuff. If you're deciding, which barbecue to go to on Saturday or which concert to attend, maybe make those decisions on what's trendy or popular. Deciding who the leader of your nation is or who affects your rights from day to day needs to be a personal decision, and it needs to be something that you do after you've done your due diligence and do your homework and actually have actually formed your own opinion about the matter, as opposed to just agreeing with all your friends or what the pretty girl on Facebook thinks,
What role, then, does the mainstream media have in this? Because, let's face it, they seem to be very much siding with a more left appeal. And media outlets, as we've talked about this before, shouldn't be politically based. They should be calling stories down. Exactly, they are. But even up here, they aren't offering solutions anymore. They seem to be playing up to what in effort for ratings. They seem to be playing up their stories in almost a bullying fashion at times. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a protest about Antifa. Well, we get Antifa, but there's no counterbalance to a lot of stories anymore in journalism. So they're not telling the full story anymore. How much has that affected people's thoughts?
Well, I would say that they're not doing it for ratings, to be honest with you, Dave. My belief is that they're doing it from a higher instruction. I think that media is corrupt, mainstream media. All the alphabet networks are corrupt, and I believe that they are shills for the globalist movement. And the left, unfortunately, has become a vehicle for that movement. And, again, I used to be real hesitant to say that because, like I said, I have a lot of really intelligent, good-hearted, good-minded people on the left, friends of mine, and I don't want to hurt their feelings or diminish their input, but they don't realize, a lot of them are just completely blind to the fact that their political parties have been hijacked by a very determined global agenda that has sold them and brainwashed them on some well-sounding ideas at the expense of sovereignty, individual rights, liberties, freedoms. They don't see it for what it is, and so I don't think the media. I don't think the media does this in some organic way, and they're just doing it for ratings. I think they know exactly what outcome they're getting, and I think they're doing it to affect that outcome, to be perfectly honest with you. And I do think that it motivates people to go out and vote a certain way. Now, certainly that's always been the case. Even before there was such an influence for a globalist movement, even before it was as corrupt as it is, there's always going to be left-leaning media outlets and right-leaning media outlets and publications. Even before there was television, there was print publications on both sides. So we call that propaganda. And there's always been propaganda of one type or another to influence, bases one direction or another based on their particular biases. So that's not necessarily new. But what is new is that there's such a huge mass collection of mainstream media outlets that all go one direction. And I don't believe it's about true political feelings. I don't think it's about ratings or anything like that. I think it's to serve an agenda.
Jamie, on that note, I'm going to put you on hold here. We're going to go to our final break of the night. Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet comes in the third Thursday of every month to talk about anything current events, alternative news, and tonight we've been talking about freedom of speech the first 2 hours. Hour number 3, we're going to get into a interesting comment by Donald Trump just a couple of days ago about a space force. Now, Jamie and I may have a little bit differing opinions on this, but we're going to get into it right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, M.K. Davis joins us. We're going to be talking Bigfoot and the Patterson-Gimlin film that he has studied extensively. We're going to get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Cephalianomancy. Cephalianomancy is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we have a plethora of ways to do so. You can watch us live on periscope.tv. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're over 1,000 subscribers now, which is really cool. And we are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking with Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet. Jamie comes in the third Thursday of every month to talk about everything alternative in the media and current affairs. Jamie, welcome back.
Good to be back.
Now, Jamie, your president down there, Donald Trump, he sometimes says some pretty wacky things. However, there are many believing that one of his latest statements isn't so wacky at all. And that is, just the other day when he was addressing some Marines in California, he brought up the fact that maybe it's time for a United States Space Force. Now, for those in the tinfoil hat area, where we serve a lot of our audience, it was a big green light to wonder whether or not the entire idea of the secret space program and what they're hiding at places like Dugway, Area 51, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and wherever they're hiding, that there could be some validity to what is actually going on. When you heard Donald Trump say that, at first he said it was a joke, but then he reiterated and said, this is a pretty good idea, and the mainstream then jumped all over it. What do you think of this story?
Well, I am not a Trump hater, as you know. I support the president, but he does, as you said, often say some pretty ridiculous things. I think it's just his personality. So I honestly believe that it was just a Trumpism. That's how I refer to them. Trumpisms, like Mexico is going to pay for the wall. I think he gets excited and nervous and isn't a good public speaker and says things, like that, and puts his foot in his mouth and lets it overload him. And and then instead of just admitting that was the case, then he tries to back it up by actually proposing that it's a great idea. I don't think Mexico is going to pay for the wall, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to sell any Defense Department on a space force. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. We can expand on it.
Well, I'll tell you where it's a little bit interesting, okay? And I like to look at timelines, all right? Timelines, for some reason, I absolutely love looking at. Now, if
Yeah, in a timeline. I agree.
Now, if we go back, Jamie, to Tom DeLonge. Now, I'm not saying there is any connection here, okay? And I realize there may be a few listeners automatically eye-rolling the moment I mention his name. Okay, but Tom DeLonge, when he was on Joe Rogan, and we've mentioned this numerous times on this show, he goes on there and says, all aliens are bad. The United States must look at putting nuclear weapons in outer space to protect us from any sort of outside influence, because aliens are not good. They're going to come here to take over the planet. Then all of a sudden, this happens. Okay? Or, pardon me, before this happens, we start seeing the To the Stars Academy releasing 3 videos now of supposed alleged UFOs that the Pentagon had researched. Okay? And then, now, this. So there's a lot of people in this field who are saying, maybe there is something to this. Maybe there is some sort of connection, that this is just another step in disclosure. Because, let's face it, there's a lot of billions of dollars every year that go into the defense budget that are unaccounted for. Sometimes trillions of dollars. We've seen that a couple of times before. 9/11. The part of the Pentagon that was shot that was blown up was a bunch of accountants trying to figure out where Donald Rumsfeld could not account for $2.3 trillion missing dollars. So there is a lot of things going on that seem to correlate with what the president just said a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But I wouldn't necessarily connect those dots. At least not in that way. I wouldn't. And I'm not discounting it either. Anything's a possibility. But I don't necessarily know that those dots are connected. I know that part of what he alluded to in follow-up was something about space, fighting wars in space or something like that. And I thought that was just another junk statement. As far as I understand it, nobody's fighting any wars in space right now. And I know that there was, at one point, I think it was President Reagan was talking about a Star Wars initiative, being able to launch missiles from satellites or from space. So it's not necessarily a new idea, wholly speaking anyway. The idea, of course, has been talked about before. I don't think that's where Trump was coming from. But following your path of logic, what do you think that a space force would be good for, if there was one to be revealed or started? What's it good for, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it would be a great way to bring out the secret space program. Okay, because there are a lot of people who've done some incredible research. Olaf Phillips, who has been on this show, Michael Schratt, who has been on this show, and others, okay, who believe that we have already been to the moon numerous times after the Apollo mission. We have bases set up there. There are people who believe that we have bases set up on Mars. Example, Randy Kramer, who has been on this show, who said he spent 17 out of his 20 years in the Marine Corps stationed on Mars. Then you go to Andrew Bashago, who says time travel is real, that there are different areas where he as a child chrononaut was able to jump into other areas, including going to Mars. And I think that this may be a program where we could actually see some sort of disclosure on the technologies that have been hidden from the public and taxpayers for so many years.
Well, I don't know, Dave. I know you're hungry for that disclosure, and I think it would be great if there's something to disclose. I would definitely be all for it. As far as Trump's statement, I don't see where it ties in. If he's thinking about a space force, I guess what you're suggesting is that if a space force were justified or sold to the public as a great idea, that would be a great vehicle to go ahead and open the doors to the rest of the space programs and all that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it would open the door, and it could unlock a lot of secrets. It could very much unlock a lot of secrets. Now, do I think we could win a space war with aliens? Not a hope. I mean, hell, if they have the technology to get here from millions of light years away, be damned if they're going to be affected by a small nuclear weapon. Okay, they're going to be packing some serious heat. You know what I'm saying? That would be like,
not if the liberals are running their planet. They probably banned those weapons, so they're not allowed to defend themselves anymore.
Well, and I don't think there is a war with aliens, okay? I really don't. But there is a conceptualized belief out there that this is another road to a false flag of a false alien invasion. So that way it can homogenize a lot of the current practices in the Constitution, which would not be good. And a lot of people are seeing those comments as a red flag. Then there are others who yeah.
Repeat that again for me, because I think you're onto something there. What you said that a fake alien invasion, is that what you were alluding to?
That's exactly what I said.
And how would that play out with respect to what you were saying?
Well, there are a lot of people who believe that any type of false alien invasion may affect the Constitution, right?
Right. Well, you may be onto something there. Now, having said that, see, now you're touching on something that I've suspected for a long time. I've thought for a long time that, and it's not just me thinking it out of thin air. It's been alluded to many times from many sources that is a possibility that a fake alien invasion is a possibility. In other words, a rabbit in the hat for the government, something they may try to affect things. And, 9/11, maybe 9/11 wasn't big enough. Maybe a fake alien invasion is what we need, So if that's what you're suggesting, sure. I'm not sure that I would still necessarily tie that to Trump's comments, but yeah, who knows? It would tie in great. Maybe that would be a slick way to get the conversation on the table again. I don't know. All kinds of possibilities. I wouldn't rule anything out. My inclination is, personally, if you're asking me, I think Trump was it was a Trumpism, to be honest.
Could very well be, but when you see how the government has kind of taken over the entire disclosure movement, it's not really as public as a lot of people are tending to believe out there. And then you add this in, you can see where people are a little sensitive and maybe jumping to conclusions, but maybe there is something to this. I mean, there's a lot of people who were on the Tom DeLonge bandwagon, Jamie, until recently when they started doing their homework and 2 + 2 was not adding up to 4 in certain sections. And they're like, hold on a second here, this isn't adding up correctly. And now they're not really supporting the entire To the Stars campaign. They think it's a phony campaign. So there is a lot of those things going on.
Sure, yeah. I guess for me, from my perspective, you're probably conflating and connecting some dots I wouldn't connect. But I'm not discounting the possibility in the individual areas. For example, you and I have had conversations about the To the Stars project, and I'm not sold that they are a legitimate organization either. And sure, they may tie into something government controlled. It's too soon to tell. It's one of those things where a secret's a secret until it's not a secret. And just because somebody hints at something but doesn't give you the full meal deal, you're just left to speculate. So we're out here grasping at straws trying to connect dots, and anything that happens, like Trump's comment or anything else, we try to find a way, how does that fit into? So it's interesting. I guess one of the things that is most interesting to me is that this idea that that a government or several governments may collectively stage a fake alien invasion for one purpose or another, hypothetically is plausible, believe it or not, for them to do that. And I would say that would be completely separate from any true existence of extraterrestrials or anything. If there is such a thing, if they're here, if they've been here, if there's any technology, if there are any artifacts, all of that could be completely separate and set aside from a staged alien invasion. They may not, and disclosure as well, they may not have anything to do with each other. In other words, they could keep their secret and the real technology and put on some production for another whole purpose, so they wouldn't necessarily go hand in hand. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, either way, I mean, there are people who believe out there that the moon landing didn't happen, or that we've already got bases on the moon and Mars and a couple of other places, that we've been all around there. There's a lot of people who believe these TR-3B black triangles, Jamie, are of the United States military, and they are used to transport people to the moon or to Mars.
Right.
Randy Kramer said Randy Kramer, who spent 17 years allegedly on Mars fighting aliens, stated that that's how they got to their jump ship on the moon, was through TR-3B craft. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories and that go from one end of the spectrum to the other. We never went to the moon in the first place, and now we're drilling for things there, and on Mars too. So it goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. And there are a lot of people out there with really compelling stories and claim they experienced this, that, or the other thing. And who am I to discount them? I can't. That's their experience. But until I know, it's hard for me to sign up to something, and until I see something materialize one way or another, I don't know where all the pieces fit. As far as a fake staged alien presence or invasion or threat or anything like that, where a space force would play in, or changes in policy would play in, the reason I lend that credence as opposed to some of the other ideas is because it actually has been proposed before. It's been talked about. It's been kicked about before. And I could see where it would serve an agenda that I know does exist here on our planet. I know that it exists. So it's plausible that something like that could be affected. Whether it is in the works or not, I don't know. But I know that it's been talked about. As I mentioned before, if you go back to President Reagan, wanted to call for launching a Star Wars project to be able to launch missiles from space to Earth, for domestic battle. And then he also made, of course, as you know, that infamous cryptic statement in front of the UN where he talked about, how would our differences be approached differently if we were all facing a threat from outside of this world. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but I'm sure you're aware of it. So even with Reagan, we were this kind of talk was floated about missiles in space and threats from space and things like that. So it's not a brand new idea. And maybe there's been a program in place all along. As you know, I know you've alluded to that before. Maybe there already is a program. I just don't know. We started this off talking about Trump's comments. I'm just not sold on the idea per se that his comments would be a part of that. But from some angles, from some perspectives, it could. I can see that.
Do you believe then that there is potentially some sort of secret space program going on?
Do I believe there's a secret space program going on?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, of course. Now, I don't know what that means, though. In other words, I think that for example, it could be something as small as, if we went to the moon and dug up a bunch of dust and brought it back, and they're still studying microbes and things that they're not sharing with the public, or maybe they found fossils or evidence. It could be a whole plethora of ideas out there, possibilities. But yes, we know that the government keeps secrets from people. So are they hiding alien spacecraft from Roswell? A lot of these things that we, have heard over the years, and you've discussed on your show with many guests, they're all possibilities. I don't categorically discount any of them. I'm open-minded. But your general question, is the government hiding a space program from us? Well, of course, I'm sure they are. Government does the one thing the government is very good at is spending money. Well, and the other thing is hiding things. They spend a lot of money and they hide things, and sometimes they hide the money. As you mentioned earlier, the trillions that were missing the day before 9/11.
Yes, it's very intriguing with all of this because, let's face it, President Trump does not have an edit button. Okay, and that is what is very
doesn't have a filter.
No, but Jamie,
sometimes I like him for that. And other times I'm like, you didn't say that, did you?
No,
it just depends on what he said.
But that's where this whole field has kind of gone haywire now, because everybody who has been following this, okay, going back to Reagan, if you watch a documentary that Michael Schratt has done, and it's on YouTube, okay, where he literally states that Ronald Reagan was quoted in a book as saying that, they already had a shuttle that could take up to 300 personnel up into space. Well, at that time, the shuttle program for NASA could hold 8 people.
Yeah.
And here the president in Reagan is saying that they already had a shuttle that could take up to 300 people up into space. Was that a leak?
Maybe they had a trailer.
Maybe.
Or not. Or maybe it was, the family model. I don't know. It's hard to say, man. It's all very exciting stuff, though. I mean, I'm like you, Dave. If there's something going on, I want to know about it. I think we should know about it. And I think Trump would be the one to let it slip, wouldn't he?
I think President Trump would be. Absolutely. That's why many in this field are now starting to wonder if he is the disclosure president. Because the original plan, from what I heard, okay, so hindsight sources, with sources, you could only take them with a grain of salt. But from what I had heard, the biggest disappointment that happened in the disclosure movement was Trump winning. Because everybody expected, through John Podesta, that Hillary would win. Hillary would then become the disclosure president. But when Trump kind of upset that apple cart, shall we say, Now people are starting to think that maybe Trump will be the disclosure president. And maybe all of these little nuances that have been happening since the To the Stars campaign came together in October, that maybe, just maybe, this is all a build-up to something much larger.
That would be exciting. We know Hillary would not be the disclosure president at all because she didn't even disclose her emails. She beat them up with a hammer and soaked them in some sort of chemical. So we're not getting anything out of her. So hopefully, if there is something, Trump will spill the beans.
But that's the whole point. That is the whole point. Is that this comment has people wondering. It has people in this community wondering, oh, here we go. I was talking after the show to a lady whom you're not familiar with, but our audience is, in Melinda Leslie, who is very, very well connected in this entire field. And she was actually wondering if that was the start of this too. Jamie, we're going to go to a phone call here because we have a caller calling in. Area code 423. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, Dave and Jeremy. This is Tommy. How you doing there tonight?
Tommy, what's going on?
Hey, just chiming in on your conversation there. Interesting. Batting this stuff around. Things going through my head here as you're discussing this. Everybody's got their ideas, of course, and I, like a lot of people, try to string it together, connect the dots. What's the big picture? And so let's see, try to touch upon a few things here that come to my mind. I would preface it by saying that, this is the Matrix, folks. Everything that we think we know is wrong to that of our true, inherent, godlike, creative, sentient nature, of which we are, probably 90-95% unaware at this point, because we're locked in this quarantine to learn and grow and evolve in the spiritual capacity to finally, eventually, and in this lifetime, evolve out of it consciously in this lower realm.
Tommy, do you have a question for Jamie?
Not at this point necessarily. Did you want me to have one?
Well, normally when we have a guest, that might be the whole point.
I was just collaborating upon the conversation, adding to it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's all right, my friend. That's all right.
Disrupt your flow there. I was just adding to it. If you got to have a question, then I hadn't called because I had one. I was, like I said in the beginning, just trying to lend in and add some ideas and so on and so forth. Is that all right, or should I just hang up?
Very happy. No, you can make your point, and then Jamie, maybe you want to take the time to respond. Go ahead, Tom.
Talking along with you. Just having a three-way conversation here. That's all. If that's permissible, if people can think for themselves and call up without a question, I thought your show was the one that you could do it on.
Well, so normally when you call, I don't have a guest, so I'm a little unprepared for that. I'm still learning this whole call thing.
Okay. Yeah, talking about free speech and all this kind of stuff in the beginning there, I could mention that, the Constitution does not apply to us people. The trading with the Enemy Act, the amended version of the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1933 states that the people are the enemy of the United States. The people, that's you and me. And you have a fiction government trying to contract with real people, and they have to scare them in order to do it. So there has to be an enemy, and they cannot help us at all. And everything they're about is it's a negative reptilian agenda. There's nothing nice about it except that we could learn and grow and zero out the timeline so that we can neutralize it, so that we have space available to grow and evolve out of this very low density situation. And so it's all spiritual. We have an entity that is trying to do business contracting with real people, and the Constitution does not apply to the real people. So really, upon the birth of the individual, we're considered dead on arrival, DOA. So they're looking at us like this, and this is why dead people can't talk. And this is why they give it to us, but they take it away. They just simply appease the people in the media by mentioning the Constitution, free speech, gun rights, but they don't really mean it, as we can clearly see over the decades. They're just appeasing us to keep the contracting going, because dead people who they consider us can't own guns, and they don't have mouths to speak. So they let people protest, yada, 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 scream and yell and moan and bitch and complain and whine for more cheese, please, because, you know, the government isn't helping us forever. They're not going to. So they just looking out their windows laughing at everybody because they're 20 years ahead, and people not understanding the dilemma and this dichotomy of what's really going on, because the government is not speaking to the people. It's speaking to the name on the birth certificate, whom the people have been answering to their whole entire lives, and it's not them. So it's a real dichotomy, like I say. So free speech, you don't have any, you know.
Thank you so much, Tommy. I appreciate that. I'm gonna let Jamie answer this, and you can listen into his response on the other side. But You had a good run tonight. Thank you, my friend, for calling in. Always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Dave and Jeremy.
Take care. What do you think about that, Jamie?
Well, that's a lot. But yeah, I mean, Tommy had a good point with, you know, the fact that a lot of the way we live our lives is basically up to the structure of the government. So, you know, we don't know how much of this is a matrix or how much of it is just, you know, regular manipulation, government manipulation. You know, it could go so many different directions. Like I say, you know, for me, I have to see something materialize a little bit so I can get a good assessment of what I feel is really happening. As far as what, you know, you and I are talking about this evening, in this last hour about a space force and disclosure and how it may all tie together and this or that or the other thing, you know, I think there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of comments being made, a lot of programs in the works. It's very exciting, especially for somebody in your field and discussing the things that you talk about all the time. I think it'd be great if something materialized out of it, one direction or another. I'm never a fan of government keeping too many secrets. Some secrets, you know, are probably necessary for security, but probably far less of those are necessary than what the government keeps from us. So you know, any amount of disclosure or whatever's disclosed, I'm all for it, man. I hope there is something to it. If we're just going to create a space force to waste more tax dollars and nothing comes of it, I'm not for it. But if it leads to something productive, I'm for it, whether he was joking or not.
We only have about 8 minutes before we got to go to tonight's Thought of the Dave. So, and we're going to get into that, and I'm going to get you to stick around because I'm curious about you commenting on that. But I want to get to something here because in hour number one, I'm not going to use the word offended, okay? But one of our regular listeners, her name's Yvonne, says this. Problem with this show is it is all based on speculation, political bias, and usual American tendency to be operating only out of their head. There was a couple of spelling mistakes in there. And then she posts, waste of my time. Now, the way I look at it, okay, normally I don't like to single out listeners, but I will on this one because, and it's not because it's Yvonne, but this is probably a number of people out there who are thinking the exact same thing. Okay? There has been absolutely zero political bias in this form and in this show. But that is how sensitive we are becoming because we're not allowed to question anything anymore. Okay? Jamie, and I will defend him tonight, has said absolutely nothing against the left. The extreme left, the people who are telling what you can and cannot say on universities, of course he's approached that. Everybody, including the left, should be concerned about that. But at no point, even just because he is a self-admitted Trump supporter and Republican, does not mean that he is not sided with the left when the concern is not the left, it's the extreme left. Okay?
Right.
The people who are shutting down what you are allowed to say. So if you think this show is a waste of time because we're bringing up some serious questions about what we're allowed and not allowed to say, along with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms up here in Canada or the First Amendment down south, what are we allowed to say?
Right. Well, I would just
go ahead.
Say kindly unplug yourself. Yeah. If you don't like it, kindly unplug yourself. You know. But that goes exactly to the heart of what I'm saying is that, we're not allowed to criticize anymore. We're not allowed to voice our opinions without being condemned for things. And the slightest hint that you might have a bias to the right and the extreme left will just jump on you. They self-segregate themselves to a very extreme margin, and that's unfortunate. They don't have much tolerance for other opinions right now. It's very sad.
And for people to say that I'm an ultra-conservative, I'm Canadian. We don't have ultra-conservatives up here. I'm watching you, Kevin. I'm watching you, Kevin. And I'm shaking my finger at you right now. Anyways, but it isn't about calling out. But this is the way the society has gone. Go ahead.
In all fairness, Evelyn is entitled to her opinion, and that's fine. But I would say I would encourage her if she's not getting what she wants out of the conversation as a listener. Just tune into something else. Maybe there's something else out there for her. I make a practice out of listening to opposing views and things I don't agree with, because ultimately that's the only way you learn. If you only listen and pay attention to people that you agree with constantly, you've got a one-track mind. You're not going to grow. You're not going to expand. And a lot of times I'll find that I end up right back in my thought process where I started. But at least I'm qualified to have that opinion now because I listened to the other side. And I think until you do that, until you're willing to do that, you're not really qualified to to really speak out too much. I mean, you can if you want, but you're not necessarily qualified to. It's just the same with voting. Half the people I think vote are not really educated enough to vote, but they have a right to. So
we're going to go back to the phone lines. I think Robin is calling in for a second time tonight. Robin.
Yes, this is also about voting. So I have good friends that are R's and D's, but I vote both ways. But that's not really the point. The point is that there are people in school that and they're in college by plus for the ones that are in college, the people that are her professors have big influences over them because they never really get outdoors, so So I would mainly say that they're pretty much Democrats, and plus people who are college students probably live in big cities. Probably like for here where I live is Seattle. Is people are mainly Democrats from what I can say, but probably some of them are Republicans too. And plus they're young, so I don't want to really throw around the word naive, but I guess that word could be there too. And plus for people who are young and don't really do their homework, but I always pay attention to what's going on, and plus I think there's also what also happens is that there are some people that it doesn't matter if they're young or old. There's also what happens is wishful thinking happens too. And
right.
That's also happens with voting, and plus and people and who you're voting for, you have to really pay attention for what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Vice president or president.
Fully agree.
And even in the debates. So when you're on for the person that you're like, it doesn't matter if it was Hillary Clinton, Obama, or Trump. They get who everybody gets in cabinet, and then you're stuck with them. Then you may not like what they're doing later on.
All right, Robin, I'm going to have to cut you off right there because I'm going to get Jamie time to respond, and then we got to go into the thought of the day. Thanks for the double shot of phone calls tonight.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, voting isn't a perfect thing either. You gotta do your homework, and you gotta figure out, your best decision. And even if the guy that you or gal that you voted for didn't get in office, the only way this whole thing works is to protect the republic, to protect the system, to protect the Constitution. And because when it's, voting in our system is just like real life. You don't always get your way, but you have to make the best of it. And, it's like if you're a family and you have 3 children and they all 3 want to go see different movies, well, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. And next week, maybe you'll get what you want. I know there's more at stake with voting and things like that, but, as long as we protect our Constitution, as long as we protect our rights as individuals and we protect our liberty, that's the most important thing, because when we do that, then we all win. We all win. If you try to shut down people and shut down people's rights because you don't agree with them, you can't say this, you can't do that. Before you know it, we all lose our rights, because that's just the way it goes. There's no other way. There's no in between. Either we all get rights or eventually none of us will have rights. There's no middle area with that.
Well, it's a cruel audience in the chat rooms right now, because they're now not hammering the left, they're not hammering the right, they're hammering me with them damn garden gnomes again. Damn garden gnomes. Jamie, time for the thought of the Daves. Time for the thought of the Dave.
Give it to us.
Oh, you gotta love Cutarebra by Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Feels so good. Weirdest, strangest song. But it's a good one. The Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day I post a question to you guys, and we read your responses on the air. So tonight's Thought of the Dave is something like this. It goes, do you feel your right to freedom of speech is disappearing? And Jamie, one of the things that I have noticed is the majority of people, I would say 99% of the people who weighed in on this, they're both Democrats, they're both Republicans, they're from other countries, and 99% of the people said yes, absolutely. Does that number shock you?
99% of the people said yes to, what was the exact question again?
Do you feel your right to freedom of speech is disappearing?
Yeah, that is shocking that many people are hip to that. But I'm glad they are. Now the question is, now that we can all agree on that, what do we do about it? Because it will disappear. I don't think it's quite disappearing yet, but it is threatened, and it's getting extremely close to that tipping point. Because it doesn't take much once you start pulling out those bricks from the bottom of the foundation, the strongest ones, the core ones, freedom of speech, the right to express yourself, the right to defend yourself. Once you start pulling out those big bricks from the bottom, all the other ones from the top fall. And so I agree. I'm glad that people do agree that we're starting to lose our freedoms, or at least they're in dire jeopardy. The question is now, and what people need to really get serious about, is how do we stop that? What do we do about it? Are we just going to be apathetic and sit back and watch it happen? Or are we going to do something about it? And I think we need to stop listening to mainstream media, and we need to stop listening to politicians telling us how to think and telling us what to say and what not to say, and the media doing the same thing. The media doesn't have any authority over me, and the only authority the government has over the people is the authority the people give the government. So we need to get real serious about this, and we need to start thinking about this in terms of what do we do about it. Because if we don't, it's not going to end well. It's going to be messy, no matter how you slice it. It won't be a good thing. So,
well, let's read some of the comments that have come through here. Chris says yes all the time. Fred says, I'm not sure you can hide behind a hashtag and be the biggest troll on the planet when you physically say something, you're being judged. That's a good comment. That is true. A lot of people are creating fake profiles, Jamie, just so they can actually speak their mind.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's one of the unfortunate drawbacks of social media, is that people can be keyboard warriors and, express themselves that way. But, and that it's effective. You can influence people that way. But I think you also have to have some moral fortitude to yourself, and you need to have a backbone, and you need to actually get out in the real world and not be vulgar and not be violent and don't be aggressive. But there is a way to engage people and challenge people's ideas and see if they're willing to listen to the other side. And don't be afraid to speak your mind under your real name. That's the way you lose. If you're silent, you do nobody any good, especially when the other side is so loud. You're going to have to start speaking up. And even if you feel like you're the only one, or you feel like you're going to get attacked or anything else, that's the price you pay for standing up for what you believe in, man. Freedom isn't free. It requires sacrifice. So I think we need to start thinking about that.
Carla in the chat room, just so you know, you are way too new to this chat room to be bugging me about garden gnomes. Way too new to be bugging me about garden gnomes. Very, very unfair.
I think she's off to a good start.
No, she's not off to a good start. I'm watching you, Carla. I'm watching you now. Anyways, let's get to more comments. Jim, I hate you too. Jim Mallard A good friend of this show, the Duck, says, after reading about what YouTube is going to start censoring next, it leaves me wondering if we are fighting a losing battle. Matthew hops in and says, it seems lately freedom of speech only works one way. I can say whatever I want, but you're not allowed to disagree with me or voice an opposing opinion. Those are two powerful comments right there, Jamie.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're both right. The only thing I would go back to is that, challenging these particular social media platforms is a limited effort. I don't think that it's necessarily not worth doing because, maybe they'll change their mind. But ultimately, you got to remember that it is a business and it is their platform. So you can only go so far. For example, if I were to write something online or have a blog or something that someone said, well, I don't want you to say that, or you can't run your business that way, I would tell them where to stick it, So I support Facebook and YouTube's right to do what they're doing. I just don't think they're doing the right thing, if that makes any sense. So, like we talked about earlier, like I suggest, I think that one of the things that we can do, to be perfectly honest with you, is start and support other sources of these platforms. In other words, YouTube needs a major competitor. Facebook needs a major competitor because right now they kind of have a monopoly on the whole thing. And when you have a monopoly, you can control the narrative. So they need competition. That's one of the strongest things we can do.
All right, let's get to some more comments here. Gail says, no. However, I do see issues with free speech zones and the regulation of hate speech, but national sentiments change as the country matures, so I expect to see both of those eliminated over time. Jeff stands up, and he says, how dare you ask this, Dave Scott? I'm offended. With an LOL on the end. You'll like this one from Elizabeth. She says, I think it's fair that you can say whatever you want if you belong to the cult of hair.
Oh.
So
cult of hair.
If you got nice hair, I guess you're
you're in the cult.
Yeah, you're in.
You can say what you want.
You're absolutely in. Let's get to a couple more here. Sammy says, the rug was pulled from under us a long time ago. Ray states, not at all. There is no infringement on constitutionally protected speech. Hate speech and hoax speech are not protected by the First Amendment. If one feels the right to free speech is being violated, perhaps the issue is internal rather than external. What do you think of that comment?
Oh, that's a person I don't agree with at all. First of all, like I said earlier, free speech in the First Amendment does protect all speech. There is no law in the United States that says that your language must fit into this cube. That's why I don't like terms like hate speech. That's a slippery slope. Once you get into now, as I said earlier, I think we should all learn how to be nicer to each other. But when you start instituting policy to dictate what someone can say, so you don't hurt anyone's feelings, you're just opening up a Pandora's box. Because this week you're going to say something that's going to hurt my feelings, and next week I'm going to say something that's going to hurt your feelings, and then so we're going to make a rule that we can't say anything that hurts anybody's feelings. Well, good luck with that, because eventually you won't be able to say or write or publish or film anything. Everything will offend someone. And
that's right.
So that's a slippery slope right there. I don't agree with them at all.
All right, Kevin gets the last word. He says, it was on its last legs in the 90s that they used 9/11 as an opportunity to kill it. That is a very strong comment, Kevin. Thank you so much. Jamie Sexton, once again, my friend, we got to wrap it up on another one. You will be back on Thursday, April 19th. I'm looking forward to it, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Great to have
See
you with
you
us.
guys then.
Great to have
Good
you
night,
with
everybody.
us. You guys, Jamie, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Tomorrow night on the program, we have M.K. Davis joining us. We are going to be talking Bigfoot. We're going to be talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film, how he's broken it down, and where it's going from there. It's going to be a great show starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say a big thank you to absolutely everyone listening at home, in their cars, at work, wherever you may be. But the biggest thank you is go to everybody who was chatting away on Periscope, chatting away on Twitter at hashtag SpacedOutRadio. The Spreaker crowd, you guys were phenomenal tonight. And, of course, the veterans in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. You were amazing as well. Even though, Cardwell, you didn't give me my big mention after the password, but I'll forgive it this time. Thank you so much for sharing this show, being a part of it, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.